Aaron just came up and asked me a question, and I thought that it would make a really interesting discussion for open-minded and soft-hearted people. And he said, because he plays online, and gamers often use a lot of derogatory language and racial slurs, etc. And so he asked, even though I'm not of color, should I be offended when someone uses the N-word? And I said, I don't believe that offense is ever the right choice. Whenever we are offended, we are stealing a lesson in perfection from ourselves. It is an act of theft from something we can learn about our own judgments, our own perceptions, our own limited understanding. So I said, no, actually, don't be offended. Maybe be profoundly sad, because a word that is so powerfully infused with hate and exclusion and fear is not the kind of word that we want to be throwing around anyway, no matter whether we're saying it to the person that it was intended to hurt or to anyone else. It's a word full of grief and sorrow and pain. And it reminded me of a night at the movies. My daughter and I went to see a movie, and there was a group of young people that were disturbing the movie so badly that as we left, they were actually kicked out eventually 3/4 of the way through. And as we left the theater, the manager was waiting to give us all free tickets to come back and see the movie again, because nobody could really enjoy it. And I had forgotten something, so I came back inside, and those people were being held back by the staff and security, and I engaged them in conversation, and I was trying to implore them to look at their connectedness to everybody in the group, and that when we come together to watch a movie, you're not sitting at home on your couch by yourself, you're sitting with a group, and we're all connected, and whatever we say and do to this person is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. And so I was trying to explain some bigger philosophical, existential, spiritual truths about how we have the capacity to be a demonstration of our own self-love, of our own self-respect, of our own homework, or to show all the areas where we are still lacking in basic understanding of human dignity and respect and compassion. And it got heated on the other side. It seemed that whatever I was saying was just igniting the need to perform, the teenage mind that was like in a state of conscious rebellion against whoever and whatever was presented in front of them. Even though I was very calm and peaceful, loving and inviting, there was a threatening thing, and there were people who were walking by who would suddenly start shouting out or saying things. People would get angry, and at one point I remember the guy, the ringleader, he said to me something using the N-word that I was just thinking that he was just this. And I could tell afterwards, when thinking back, that this was a kind of phrase he had used frequently with people of not of color, a way to instigate, to ignite their offense, and immediately whoever was standing next to me was offended and wanted to start defending me and defending and fighting. And I said, I calmed that person. I said, no. And I looked into this young man's eyes, and I simply said, why would you even say that? And that moment where I felt profound sadness for this young man, and he felt it, he stopped. And some part of his brain went, no one has ever reacted to me this way for saying this. Every other person would show all of their fear, all of their anger, all of their, and there wasn't any. I had none of that. All I had was tremendous compassion for a clearly young man who was struggling with his identity. And he stopped and he paused. And this interaction between us actually went on, because as we left the theater, I had extra popcorn and I went to throw it in the garbage, and they were there, and I was like, oh, I have this extra popcorn, and I only ate the top part of it because I just didn't feel like having any. Do you want it? And one of the boys grabbed the popcorn and threw it on the ground. And I said, well, okay, if you don't want it. And I started picking up the popcorn, and I was to put in the garbage. And the other guy, the ringleader, seeing how the behavior of one of his underlings was being so disrespectful to somebody who actually made a connection with him, so he apologized immediately. He says, like, oh, I'm sorry. And the other guys came around too, and they were sort of comforting me. And I was like, it's okay. It's just popcorn. I'm going to put it in the garbage now. And I picked it up and I put it in. And the conversation continued. And at one point, this young man, who could have been more than 17, 18 years old, he says, pretty girl, I like you. And I realized that in that night, just by being open, being myself, being compassionate, I was able to make a connection to somebody who was used to not being connected to anybody. And I found our experiences teach us things. I had another experience. I'm the kind of person who go out walking anytime. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight, 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter. Playing my Pokemon Go, and somebody's walking. If I'm not heavily involved in a raid or doing something particular, I'll always look up with a big smile and like, hi, and keep walking, because I want to make that connection with people. But I never make a connection with any particular sort of person. It's just anybody that happens to not be passing by while I'm really engaged in my game, which is one of my distractions. But anyways, and then I had a yoga teacher who suffered from a lot of racial lessons. And his experiences, when he shared them with me, I realized that he spent a lifetime experiencing this form of exclusion and this form of disrespect and all these different layers of feelings that were almost like a magnet for more of the same thing. And I thought, well, I need to overcompensate for how many people are naturally falling prey to a magnet for fear. And so it's weird, because now when I walk down the street, if I notice somebody, if the person is of color, I feel more, something inside of me goes, I need to be even more happy. I need to be even more inviting. I need to be even more to compensate for all the other moments in that particular person's life where they may have experienced some form or another of judgment or exclusion or rudeness. And it changes you. And I wish I could go back before the conversation with my yoga teacher to where everybody was just everybody, because it didn't really matter. And now all of a sudden, my eyes have been open to an imbalance, and I feel necessary to be different than what I would normally be, to be more, just to compensate for something that I really didn't want to notice, but I needed to. So I had to add to the lesson an aspect that didn't occur to me before. When you see everybody as the same, and then suddenly somebody points out something that goes, no, actually they are, but inside they don't always feel that way, and they don't always think that way, and it isn't demonstrated that way, and so their reality is not presenting that way. And that creates a great responsibility for the rest of us to help in the healing process. Thought I'd share that today. Bless you. Have a freaking fabulously fantastic Friday.